City staff, the City of Lafayette, or Cox Communications.
Okay, now zoom in a little bit. A little bit more. A little bit more. More. Okay. Now, give me a little headroom. Okay, lock it right there. Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. A couple of things before we go into our main program tonight, which we will be speaking about the Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. As a matter of fact, there's about 10,000 of them in Israeli jails. A lot of them are women and children. They're very much kidnapped. That's the proper word for them. Kidnapped people held in Israeli custody. We will be speaking with Johara Baker. She has been the editor-in-chief of the Palestine Report, and she also works with she's the Media and Information Program at the Palestinian Initiative for the Promotion of Global Dialogue and Democracy, known as Miftah, M-I-F-T-A-H. We'll introduce her later on as we get her on the phone directly from Ramallah, I believe, in the West Bank, and we will talk to her about the Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. Ladies and gentlemen, our floor director here contacted his congressman regarding 9/11, as you have heard us here before, that we do need an independent investigation of what happened on 9/11. And unfortunately, he received a letter right here, pages and pages, from his congressman. And very much the congressman, which is Congressman Charles Bustani, he started the first paragraph, of course, after saying thank you and all that good stuff. He said the 9 Commission conducted a thorough and independent investigation into the events surrounding the terrorist attack in Washington, New York, and Pennsylvania. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are aware that both chairmen of that commission, which was in 2003, it took 2 years to actually get around to do an investigation, and it was 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans who very much got on line and decided that we are very much okay. Well, let's go to break because they do. I'm told that they're having problems Oh, hey, listen. Did you do 011? That's why. That's an international call, so before you go there, you need to do 011 and then do the 972. Okay. Solving technical problems on live TV. But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, both chairmen of that commission, which is Chairman Keane and Hamilton, and Chairman Hamilton, I think one of them is vice the other. I think it's Chairman Keane and then Hamilton is his vice, or vice versa, whatever. But they both said that they did not have enough money, did not have enough time, and government officials did not cooperate with them. So I don't know where Congressman Bustani, when he says that a 9/11 commission conducted a thorough and independent, that was not independent, sir. That was not independent. That was 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats sat around the table and said, don't blame me, I will not blame you. And that's exactly what we got in this commission report. A lot of things the commission, the 9/11 commission reports did not touch on. What about Building 7? A whole building, what is it, 40-some stories high that it fell? And now, next time we'll probably read our director's letter that he sent to Congressman Bustani. But very much, this is the answer that he got from Congressman Bustani, and it's wrong. We do need an investigation into the 9/11 because it's very important that we know why these people, how they planned it, who helped them, and why. None of these were answered by the commission. None of these were answered by the commission. Remember, you gave the president permission to go to war and kill hundreds of thousands of people because of 9/11. If it was not because of 9/11, you would never have allowed the president to go and destroy a sovereign country that did not mean us any harm and kill about 1 million of its people. I think you would be upset if you were an Iraqi. So you owe it to yourselves, you owe it to your future generations to get the answer now of why 9/11, why did it have to take place. Okay. Well, our president, he, of course, he was talking about the intelligence gathering, and he was defending the program of how important it is that we need to get intelligence gathering. And as smart as our president is, listen to what he said. Of course, critical intelligence that has helped to stop a number of attacks. He said that because of this intelligence gathering, we were able to stop these attacks. We were able to stop a plot to fly buildings into downtown London. Now, I know our president has some silly stuff to say, but Mr. President, buildings don't fly. He said they stopped a plot to fly buildings into downtown London. I don't know how the heck you're going to fly buildings into downtown London. And then to top it off, he said a plot to fly passenger planes into Heathrow Airport. Heathrow Airport, that's airport in London. He said a plot to fly passenger planes into Heathrow Airport. I thought that's what airports are for, to fly passenger planes into these airports. But that's the latest from our president. I don't know, what's the qualifications to be a president? I think at least know how to talk, probably, and properly. Flying buildings into downtown London and flying passenger planes into Heathrow. He discovered a plot to fly passenger planes into Heathrow Airport. Supposed to fly planes into the airport. That's what it's made for, Mr. President. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we trying to get our guest on. And but what we're going to talk about, we're going to show you some pictures of what's going on. But this particular program is dedicated to those Palestinians in Israeli jails, because there are about 10,000 Palestinians in Israeli jails, ladies and gentlemen, and a lot of them, there are a lot of women in Israeli jails. There are children in Israeli jails. And our guest will shed some lights on why these children are taken into Israeli jails. Now remember, the West Bank is occupied militarily by Israel. It's just like if the Russians come over here, and if you get out there in the streets and protest their presence here, they're going to take you to jail. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, and it doesn't matter if you are a mother of 7, 8, 9, 10 children at home, they're going to take you. Some women had delivered their children in prison. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, our guest is Johara Baker. She has been the editor-in-chief of the Palestine Report for 5 years, actually. She also translates and edits reports for Palestinian organizations and international NGOs such as USAID and the World Bank. She is a writer for the Media and Information Program at the Palestinian Initiative for Promotion of Global Dialogue and Democracy, also known for short as MIFTAH, M-I-F-T-A-H. Welcome to the program, Joharah.
Thank you.
Joharah, I've read a lot of reports that you had on the internet, and one of them deals with the Palestinian prisoners. It's estimated that there are about 10,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. Is that correct?
Well, actually, there's more. There's close to 11,000 right now.
I'm sorry?
There's actually close to 11,000.
Oh, 11,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, some of these people are actually like women who have children at home, and children. Do you know the youngest Palestinian child in Israeli prison, how old he is?
Well, it's hard to find exact statistics. There have been children known as young as 12 who have been arrested by Israeli forces, because according to Israeli military law, and I use the term law very loosely because most of their laws are arbitrary and they should not be considered laws. But Israel can issue military laws at whim. So according to their military laws, a child as young as 12 can be arrested. So there have been children, 12 years of age, that have been taken into custody.
So if I am a 12-year-old child in the streets of Ramallah and I pick up a little stone and I throw it at an Israeli jeep, they can actually arrest me and throw me in jail?
Yes. And actually, they can be charged as well in a military court. They can actually get a sentence of up to 6 months, a 12-year-old. And anyone who is 16 is sentenced and charged as an adult in Israeli military courts. Palestinians, that is.
Now,
everywhere in the world, the child is 18 and under.
Okay, now how long does it take before, does everybody go to court, they have their day in court once they are arrested, or how long does the Israeli army have before they send these kids and women to court?
You have to remember that this is, as an American, a day in court is a whole other ballgame. Right now, after 9/11, things have shifted a little bit. I think the American government has taken their cue from Israel, actually. But in the Palestinian and Israeli military courts where Palestinians are concerned, Israel basically has a free hand to do as it pleases. It says that it has courts. It says that it has, it works under the law, but that's hardly the case. They can take, after arrest, no matter how arbitrary this arrest is. I mean, it doesn't even have to be for a specific reason, and I can go into that later. After people are arrested, they have the quote-unquote right to hold people for 18 days without ever being brought before a judge, okay? They can interrogate people for up to 180 days. And when I'm talking about interrogation, I'm not talking about somebody sitting in a nice little room with someone who's speaking to them respectfully. And they can be denied a lawyer visit up to 90 days. This is all before ever seeing a judge, ever before appearing before a court.
Now,
and, or even having a lawyer present. And after that, and there's even, I don't know if this is something known to the American public, but Israeli military law has a sentence called administrative detention, which is applied to the Palestinians many times, which is a detention that is renewable. And it's given up to 1 to 6 months, and after the 6 months it can be renewed indefinitely, and it's based on quote-unquote secret evidence. Neither the lawyer, nor the court, nor the person involved has any right to see the secret files. So basically anyone can be arrested for anything and held without charge for any indefinite time.
So I mean, most of these kids that we're showing some of these kids on TV now being arrested. So most of these kids were not like caught planning a suicide bombing somewhere or fighting with machine guns or throwing bombs at an Israeli army or anything. These are kids who were arrested on their own streets and in their own homes.
Well, I mean, the overwhelming majority of Palestinians in Israeli prisons are not, being locked up because they've bombed, Israel or planned. I mean, of course there are, but the children, the women, children who are, children. There are now over 300 Palestinian minors in Israeli prison, living in very unenviable conditions. Yeah, they were. I don't know. They were in a demonstration. Okay, they threw a stone. And when I say this, I think that it's really important for people to understand that all of this has to fall under. I mean, we're not talking about some little, juvenile delinquent who decides to break a window in a public school. We're talking about an occupied individual. We're talking about someone who's fighting a military occupation over the land.
Joharah,
so
can you?
It's a legitimate cause.
Okay, now tell me, are you in Ramallah now?
I'm in Jerusalem.
Okay. Now, a lot of people, when we say occupation, a lot of times they really don't understand. So can you take just very briefly and tell our viewers what a military occupation means to people's lives every day, day on and day on? What is it? What is an occupation? What does an occupation mean?
Okay. Well, first of all, an occupation, you need to take it in the political terms. That occupation of someone else's land means that they are deprived of liberty, deprived of independence, deprived of statehood, etc., etc. But on an everyday basis, if we're going to put it in layman terms, a military occupation means that you are second and third and fourth status citizen just merely by the fact that you're Palestinian. That means that you are, that you're anything you want to do, that means travel, work, build a house, any of these things are subject to Israeli, laws, regulations, permits. You cannot travel as a Palestinian. You need permits to travel from one city to another. You need permits to work inside Israel. You need permits to travel outside the country. So all of this, and now, especially in the last 7 years, Israel has installed extremely oppressive measures in the Palestinian territories. I don't know how many people are familiar with what the separation wall.
We had done a lot of programs on the separation wall, so our viewers are very, very well educated on that subject. Now, speaking of that, that would very much kind of hinder the movement of people from one side to the other. And I've heard about a story where this gentleman from Gaza, who was diagnosed with a hole in his heart, as a matter of fact, and he was crossing to the West Bank to go and have an operation there, and they had asked him to be an informant. Do they use that a lot? Does the Israelis do the Israelis use health and health reasons, and we will let you have this operation in Israel if you become an informant on our side? Do they use these tactics?
Well, they do. I mean, of course, it's impossible to actually document, these accurate statistics of how many people, how many people have fallen into this trap, or et cetera. But yes, I think that Israel, it's happened throughout history. The occupying power has done this, but Israel does. Anyone who's in a little bit of a weaker position, that's how. Also during interrogation. When someone is taken into interrogation, the first thing they try to do is bring them to their side. And anyone who's a little bit, weak, or, weak of heart, they fall for it. So, yes, Israel does use it often. And as informants and collaborators, it's a huge problem in the system, let's say.
Okay, what happened? Your last article that you wrote, there was a disturbances somewhere in one of the prisons, and actually one of the prisoners was shot. Is that the first time that one of the prisoners gets shot, or does killing prisoners and torturing prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, is an ongoing routine thing in Israeli prisons?
What happened in this prison, it's in the Negev desert, in Arabic it's Naqab, and it's
Welcome.
It's very infamous. It's a detention center. Actually, it's not a prison. People who are there, the political prisoners who are there are not.
You've got mail.
They have. It's a detention center. I'm sorry. What happened there, the rioting and them actually shooting prisoners has happened before, but not, it doesn't happen often, simply because Israel doesn't want, the bad reputation. However, having said that, Muhammad al-Ashqar, the man who was killed, he's not the first Palestinian prisoner to have died in Israeli prisons. As I cited in my article, since the Intifada began, he's the 17th. Now, many of them, how did they die? Because of medical negligence. And this is a main reason for the death of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, because after interrogation, because the person, the prisoner is very ill and is not given medical attention. By the time they finally decide to take this person to the hospital, it's too late. It's very famously known among prisoners and their families that if someone's sick, they just throw them an aspirin. So medical negligence and also torture. I mean, there's torture is pretty rampant in Israeli prisons, especially during the interrogation time when the prisoner is away from they have not seen a lawyer, they have not seen a representative from the Red Cross.
Now, Joharah, do you know any of their methods of torture that you can tell us about?
Well, yes, because you hear it from people around you. First of all, Israel uses they use a method. It's not only physical torture. I mean, physical torture, what they do, they don't beat someone black and blue like they used to. What they do is that they use something called shabah, which is they cover the person's head in a plastic bag, and they tie them to a very low stool. They tie their hands behind their back and their feet to the chair, to the chair, and with their head down, and they keep them in that crouched position for hours and hours and hours. And they deprive them of sleep. Sometimes they put things, in the bag that have a really, have a stench. They tie the person, they stretch the person and tie them in really uncomfortable ways. Sleep deprivation is a huge problem. It is a method of torture. Isolation. Israeli interrogators, they use solitary confinement and isolation as another psychological method of torture. And of course, as you know, this can lead to insanity, because if it's hours and hours and days upon days with sleep deprivation, this is the way that they extract confessions. And under Israeli military rule, confessions under torture are admissible in court.
Okay. Joharah, why is it that the Palestinian prisoners' plight? I mean, you hear a lot about the Palestinian refugees. You hear a lot about the wall. You hear a lot about the status of Jerusalem, etc., etc. Now we hear, there is a peace conference coming up, and I'm going to ask you about this one later on. But why is this particular problem, I mean, having 10,000 people basically kidnapped from their homes, why the media is not talking about this? Why the media is not covering this the way they should?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons for this. I think one, Israel plays its part really well, not just in the prisoner issue, but in a lot of issues. That it bases its arguments on the premise of this false premise of the security of Israel, and these people are a threat, and blah, 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 etc. I think the Palestinian leadership is also falls short of its obligations towards the prisoners. I think that the prisoners are often put on the back burner of negotiations and of what should be on the on the priority list of the negotiations. And I think the international community does not pay the attention it should to these prisoners. And I think something that happened, like what happened in the Negev prison, it's called Ketziot in Hebrew, the other day, is a wake-up call, not just to the Palestinians, but also to the international community, that something must be done about these prisoners, because again, these are not criminals. These are Palestinian political prisoners who are in prison, have been put in prison by an occupying power for the sole reason that they are resisting an Israeli occupation. I mean, in different ways, in different forms, but they're all there for that purpose.
Yeah.
And so they are not, they should not be considered criminals, people who have broken a law. They should be there. They are there as heroes. I mean, for the Palestinians, they should be put on the top of the priority list. These people are serving their country day in and day out. If they were in the United States, they would be heroes.
Yeah, Joharah, the reason I mentioned that about the media, because I remember when these pictures came out of Abu Ghraib, the prison in Iraq, the infamous prison in Iraq. I mean, the whole world was, it was the talk of the town all over the world, and that's one prison. But yet, in Israel, what took place in Abu Ghraib probably is a walk in the park compared to what's taking place in Israeli jails, and the torture that they have inflicted and the pain they have inflicted on the Palestinians. But yet, Abu Ghraib was the story of the day, but the Palestinian prisoners, no one's talking about them. I mean, I haven't seen major network talking about it, so I guess that's the power of the media. And it depends, when it comes to Israel, Israel can do no wrong.
I think that's where that's the point. is that the Palestinian prisoners are not they're not an isolated issue to the media or to the international community. I think the prisoners are, because the Israeli occupation has been, ongoing for so long, and Israel is put on a pedestal by especially the United States. I think it's all part of one package. The media tends to focus more on the Palestinian issue as a whole, and the prisoner issue is just one part. And as you know, so for so many years it's been talked, Israel uses the Palestinian prisoners as a negotiating card, and so do the Palestinians. I'm not saying the Palestinians don't. The leadership is not at fault also, but as you know, the Israeli Prime Minister releases 100 Palestinian prisoners from here or 200 from there as a quote unquote goodwill measure, just to show support for Mahmoud Abbas's government. So the release of Palestinian prisoners, or the fact that the Palestinian prisoners are all part of this whole package. It's not a separated issue like in Abu Ghraib. This was first of all, the American occupation of Iraq is new, and it has a whole different dimension.
Right.
It has a whole different nature than the Israeli occupation. And, for the media, this is something outrageous, and it was, but for the Palestinians, this is something that has been ongoing for so many years that, more or less the media is lost interest.
Right, it's been going on for 60 years. Now, let me ask you about some of the profiles of like some of these women. I don't know if you have done any research or study on like, if you kind of profile like a typical woman prisoner with children at home. Like, have you had any stories of why someone was arrested and how many children she had at home, etc.? Do you have any stories that you can tell us?
Well, I mean, you have the stories that you hear in the media, women who have actually had children inside prison.
Like, what did these women do to be in prison?
Well, again, it's a wide range. I mean, there are women who were involved in the resistance. I mean, not necessarily they did not go out and detonate a bomb. But it could be that they were involved in the, in a faction. As you know, they're politically involved in factions. It could be that they were involved in actual resistance and planning attacks. I mean, but a lot of times, women in particular are arrested by Israel in order to place pressure on their imprisoned husbands, who are in interrogation, because for example, they would arrest the wife and then tell the husband that we have your wife, and they'll use a lot of intimidation tactics and threats.
So are you saying like if they're looking for someone, they will go and take his wife and say, look, you need to turn yourself in, we have your wife?
That way, or even after they have arrested the husband, and he's in interrogation, they arrest the wife and put her in a separate interrogation cell, and then, tell the husband that we have your wife. She's in the next room, and we're going to do, A, B, and C if you don't confess, etc. So there are women in. But usually, what happens if a woman is taken in as pressure on her husband, she's released after. She's not sentenced for anything. If she's sentenced, it's for another allegation, either for being involved in a political faction or being involved in the Palestinian resistance. I personally, I know a woman who spent 7 years in prison for being involved in the major Palestinian faction, Fatah, being involved in and fortunately she was not married yet, so she didn't have children. But I've heard of many women who were sometimes they are arrested because their husbands are involved. because their husbands are involved in a military action against Israel. So they get arrested, okay, and they're charged with, aiding an attack, and then if she has children, the children get pushed off to, there's not a whole social, child welfare system in Palestine. The children get shuffled off to the next nearest family relative to take care of them, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult on families when the mother and even when the father is in prison, because there's not a system, there's not a strong system to support them.
Okay. Now, Joharah, most likely we're going to have this so-called conference probably somewhere around the 26th of November. And how is the mood in the Palestinian areas? Are they counting anything on this conference, or are they saying it's just going to be another meeting and suffering will continue?
Well, I think the Palestinians have ample reason to be wary of U.S.-sponsored conferences. I think, mostly people are not very optimistic, are not very hopeful that any breakthrough is going to occur, simply because, the U.S. is such a staunch ally of Israel. No matter what the United States claims to want, and we've all heard President Bush saying that he advocates a two-state solution, that has not got us anywhere. So I think the Palestinians are aware that this peace conference, or whatever you want to call it, is going to bring about any positive results for the Palestinians. Because as long as the U.S. is this blind ally of Israel, it cannot be in the full interest of the Palestinian people or their cause.
Yeah, because, I'm looking at this conference, and number one, even the Americans are starting to say, at first when they called for the conference, they were very upbeat about that they're going to solve the problem between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and now they're saying, well, don't expect much out of this conference. But it seems to me that the main reason for this conference is to actually have some other Arab countries and Arab leaders on that table, which probably Israel is going to gain probably another Arab country who would sign a peace agreement with Israel. Do you see it that way? Do you see maybe the Saudi Arabians or the Qataris or some of these other countries signing a peace agreement before the Palestinians, the Israelis finish their negotiations?
Well, certainly this is a goal for Israel first and foremost. If that can be achieved, then, for them the conference is a success. It's not really about the Palestinians. I think that, President Bush wants to see a settlement of the conflict because, for one, this is a legacy for him before he leaves office. But I think that, like you said, if Saudi Arabia were to sign a peace agreement with Israel before a settlement occurs with the Palestinians, this is a huge achievement. I'm not quite sure that would happen. But I do think that President Bush does want to see a settlement. Now, the only problem with a settlement on U.S. terms, and it's basically Israeli terms, the United States is not going to ever go against Israel's desires in terms of the Palestinians. And we know this because we've seen it happen over and over again. And like you said, they take their cue from Israeli government statements. As long as Ehud Olmert says that, don't expect too much, we don't want to go into, no final status issues are going to be solved, no time frame is going to be given, the United States follows suit.
So why is this conference, Joharah? Why are the Palestinians allowing themselves to be used in such a way when they're not getting anything out of this meeting? I mean, they meet with Olmert and other Israeli leaders there. Why come all the way over here just to show Israel sitting with the Arabs?
Well, I think, as you know, the Palestinians are divided right now. When you're talking about those who have agreed to the conference, you're talking about the Abbas government that has now taken over the West Bank. There's also Hamas that has control of the Gaza Strip. So right now the government is not even representative of the entire Palestinian people. But Abbas, just like the late President Yasser Arafat, has always taken well, not has always, but at this point has taken the track of negotiations and peace talks as their form of, as their method of solving the conflict. So I think that, and as you know, the United States is in support of this government, of the Abbas government, financially and morally. So I don't think they have any choice at this point but to accept, to go to this peace agreement, because without the United States, the government would not even be able to stand, because it doesn't have very much popular, doesn't have a huge popular platform. So it needs this international backing in order to sustain itself.
Okay. Now, another dimension kind of entered the Palestinian politics lately. Actually, it's an old idea, but it's picking up a lot of speed, which is the one state compared to the two-state solutions. It's picking up within the intellectuals in the Palestinian community and others in the world. But how is it on the streets? Is that debate one state compared to two-state solution? Has that debate actually got into the Palestinian streets, like the average man on the street? Is that debate raging on now?
Hardly. That debate, like it has been, is only among the intellectuals. Simply because the leadership never proposes this as an option. I think the two-state solution has always been the option that has been given to the average Palestinian. And the one-state solution has never been an option that people can actually contemplate. I mean, it's only been, for example, the late Edward Said was one proponent of this option. Another reason is because this is not something that Israel will ever accept, and I think the Palestinian leadership knows that. Because of the whole, because Israel believes that it should be, a state for the Jewish people, and anything that would compromise this demographic majority is something that is unacceptable to them. Although, unfortunately, I think that is a much more viable solution than any two-state solution can be.
Now, just for our viewers who don't know what the one-state solution compared to the two-state solutions, the one-state solution is one country with basically two ethnicities, the Palestinians, the Arabs, and the Israeli Jews. Now, that's the one state where it's a democratic state. I mean, Israel says that it's a democratic state, so there's no problem with having that. Why would the Israelis have a problem with having one state where the Palestinians and the Israelis live happily ever after?
Well, again, like I said, it would cause a demographic problem. It would cause an identity problem for the Israelis, because Israel is based on its Jewishness, if I may. Israel is a Jewish state, and anything that will compromise that, it cannot have a majority of non-Jewish citizens to them. It has to have. That's one reason.
Now, let me ask you this, Joharah. If you go out to the street now, well, now it's 2 o'clock in the morning there, almost 3.
Yeah.
But if you go there and
something else.
if you go out there and you ask people if they would like to live in a one state What do you think most of the Palestinians would say, yes or no to that question?
Well, I think if they are given the correct information, I think they would say yes. But again,
now, hold on a second. Now, if we go to the two-state solution, do you think if the two-state solution comes out of this conference on the 26th of November, the date hasn't been set, but it's almost sure that it's going to be the 26th. Now, if they say, okay, there's a Palestinian state, do you think there is a chance for a Palestinian state to actually, are the conditions on the ground where you will have a viable Palestinian state?
No, this is the thing. No, not at all. Israel has ensured that a viable, geographically connected Palestinian state it cannot happen because of the wall, okay, because of the vast confiscation of Palestinian land, because of the settlements that are in the heart of the West Bank. It's not even a viable solution.
Then explain this for me. The one-state solution Israel will not accept, but yet on the ground they are doing nothing but making it a fact that there's only one solution, which is the one-state solution, because the two-state solution will not work. So why do you think the Israelis are doing that on one hand, which is doing something to actually strengthen the opinion and strengthen the idea that there will not be any other solutions but a one-state solution, something that they would not want? Can you explain to me why the Israelis are doing this?
Well, no, what they're doing is not actually encouraging a one-state solution. A one-state solution would mean that the Palestinians everywhere would be on equal ground like Israeli citizens, and that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is, the best analogy would be the Native Americans, okay, back when the United States gained their independence. The only difference now is that Israel can't do exactly what the United States has done, because it's because of the media, because it's the globalization, because of all of these factors. What they want to do is to isolate the Palestinians in cantons, okay, maybe in autonomous little cantons in the West Bank, and to a larger extent in the Gaza Strip, where they will rule themselves, but more or less still be under the authority of the Israeli government as second-class citizens, never as Israeli citizens. Palestinians, they're never going to give Palestinians in the West Bank, Israeli citizenship, so that they can be on equal ground. What they're doing is setting the stage for a separation, okay, not for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, but for little, it's like apartheid South Africa, where you have little isolated Bantustan, basically, where the people inside live, as second-class citizens, where they can rule themselves, but not as free, independent citizens of their own state.
So, very much like the Indian reservations that we have here in the States.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Okay. Now, tell me something. In 2000, we did a documentary on the Israeli checkpoints at that time that was making the Palestinian lives so miserable at that time, just with the checkpoints. And then there comes the wall, and we did a documentary in 2004, and actually this past summer we did another one on life inside the wall. How much can the Palestinians take? I mean, how much can they resist? How long can they go with the situation the way it is? And of course, it's going to get even worse and worse and worse. Look what is happening in Gaza, where Israel is cutting off the fuel supply, and many other stuff too they're cutting off. How much more can the Palestinians endure?
I don't know. I mean, I think they don't have a choice. When you say how long can they endure, I don't know what the breaking point. What would that entail? I think the Palestinians, it's really difficult. It's really difficult for the average Palestinian to even, sustain, to live on a daily basis. Like you said, I think it's going to get worse, and it is getting worse. And for on an everyday basis, the Palestinians in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, it's a struggle just to get through the day. I don't think they have a choice whether to endure or not. Now, and I think Israel is banking on that. I think that Israel thinks the more that it puts pressure, the more concessions the leadership is going to give. In the end, the Palestinians are going to be like, okay, we call it, mercy, basically, and we'll accept whatever you offer us. And this is what Israel wants. Now, I don't know what the breaking point will be. Concessions on the Palestinian side have already been made tremendously over the past, 60 years.
Okay. Now, Joharah,
I don't know how much more that we can do without completely compromising our national cause.
Now, don't you think the existence of the Palestinian Authority, or it's called the Palestinian National Authority, don't you think it's really the existence of this entity has helped Israel? I mean, Israel's still occupying the land. Now we just have a government that's called the Palestinian government, and to the people on the outside, they think that the Palestinians have a real government of some sense. Don't you think it will be much better for the Palestinians to dissolve this Palestinian Authority and tell Israel, look, come occupy the whole, because you are occupying the whole thing, and for the Palestinians to go underground just like they used to? Why not try that? Why have this government that is basically helping the existence of Israel, not the existence of the Palestinians?
I agree with you. I think that the Palestinian Authority, again, like you said, people think that the Palestinians have a government, but they don't have a state. It's a quasi-government, and it has aided the Israelis. Palestinian police at certain points, were arresting Palestinian activists that Israel would hand them the list of Palestinians that they call, quote-unquote terrorists, which is, that's another subject altogether, in order to strengthen that moderate government. It would actually be actually a great idea, and it's not one that has not been
because Joharah, at least
the Palestinian government.
Yeah, because at least the Palestinians now, Israel, for lack, because of the unemployment, very high rate of unemployment, people don't have jobs, people don't have money, people are oppressed. The Israelis are blaming all that on the Palestinian government. If that government is not there, then Israel would have to find jobs. And as a matter of fact, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, they were in a lot better shape before this so-called Palestinian government became a fact than what it is now. So it's like whatever
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I think it's just it's too late to turn back the clock. Because not that I think it's a great option, but I don't think that it's going to happen. For one, there's this Palestinian government that's in place. People are not going to give up those positions, no matter how bogus they are. I think they're false seats of power, but that's not going to happen. Israel's not going to allow it. The United States is not going to allow it because basically it serves their interests.
Yeah.
And the Palestinians, first and foremost, that sector that have become, are part of this, PA, the Palestinian Authority, are not going to want to give this up.
Joharah, we only have about a minute left.
You'd have to take that back all the way to Oslo.
Right.
The Oslo Accords that were signed, and
okay.
that was a mistake anyway.
Very good. Joharah, I just have time to say thank you very much for waking up so early to come and be in the program. We apologize. There's 8 hours difference between us and you, and we wanted to get you here live. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for being with us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next Thursday at 6:30. Next Thursday at 6:30. And just remember, all these Palestinian prisoners in Israeli, well, they call them prisoners, I call them kidnapped people, because when you go in at 2 o'clock in the morning and send in these killer dogs into Palestinian homes and drag a 12-year-old kid from his bedroom and take him to a detention center without even taking him to court, is a crime that everybody should be very upset about it. See you next Thursday. Good night.